One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. You come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego, or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire. We're back, and I'd like to say we're live, but we're not. And this could be the topic of today as well as other things. Spreaker has decided that you no longer can go live. And the people who are going live are only because they have like a year contract or whatever. I went by monthly, so at the end of my month, it was like no warning, no more live. You can record like I'm doing now and then upload it to them, but no live. And I've been doing live radio, however you want to call radio, webcasting, satellite radio, broadcast radio, YouTube radio, whatever. I've been doing live stuff since 2003. And now that's, because they went with Spreaker, it's now gone. I can't do live audio. I don't necessarily want to do live video all the time because it's just me talking. I may have stuff to say, and it may be worth listening, but you need to see me saying it. I don't know. But I'm going to have to go with the live video because that's what's left to me to work with. Other areas that do live stuff I can do. It's another cost to deal with. But the main problem here with Spreaker is I got a zillion shows. I got 300 and some, 400 shows up there. I don't even know how many are up there. It's almost to the limit, and I have that tied in. So if you're listening now to Spreaker, and you would like to get these shows before they disappear, go to Spreaker and download them. As far as I know, everything is downloadable. I'm going to try and move them over to my website, but I've been doing this for 21 years. That's a lot of stuff to do. 2017 onward is already on feet2thefireradio.com. And there's a link to the original website, which is feet2fire.com. And you can go through and get the audio that way, but I'm going to try and work it all out so it's all under one roof, if you will. So that's one thing. Now, why is Spreaker doing this? Well, I've listened to interviews with Mike Benz, who talks about the military censorship complex. I seem to have lost a page I had to it. But I'm going to have to redo this while I'm talking to you. Mike Benz, B-E-N-Z. I heard him with Tucker. So I'm noticing he's on Twitter at Mike Benz Cyber. And if you look up YouTube, he's been around a block a few times. He has he's been doing a work of what he calls the Military Censorship Complex. And the Tucker interview, if you can find it, if I can find the link, I'll put it up there in the show notes, because it's very worth listening. I mean, Mike Benz had, and Tucker, kudos to him, just let him go, right? And he just goes through this whole thing, making a case. And what he is talking about is what's coming in, and this is before Spreaker decided no more live. What they were talking about coming in with was having more censorship against disinformation, which in reality is called opinion, and it's called exculpatory evidence against the narrative. And they want to stop all of that, obviously, with Trump and whatnot. So the stuff going on with TikTok, for example, is not really about protecting us from the Chinese government, though in it supposedly the corporate structure and all that isn't Chinese, the CCP. But nonetheless, that's not really why they're doing it. They're doing it so they're afraid that could get out there and not be controlled. So I would predict, based on Spreaker's working, and they're probably decided to cut the live service, but they're stuck with people until perhaps the end of the year, which is past where they want it to. So maybe they're hoping they'll quit. I don't know. But you can look to see that other places will continue they'll continue this closing of the noose. Now, perhaps YouTube has a better way to monitor live broadcasting, and so they can cut a stream if they would like to midstream. I know I've done live broadcasts on YouTube, and like, for example, my last couple weeks ago, Dr. Rita Louise, I did a live broadcast, and when it came to be posted, because I played a little bumper music that I did for her years ago on my show, it was banned worldwide until that was muted out. Now, it went across live, and it had several people who'd listened prior to it doing chopping it, but it's just an example of what could be done in this aspects of it. Now you think, well, people can talk about things, it's irresponsible, and this is, I don't know. I guess the thought is people are dumb and will believe anything they're told based on their affection, or they won't believe based on their disaffection to whoever they're listening to, and then nobody thinks anymore. Now, maybe that's true, because I've seen a lot of stuff going on that I can't believe is going on. If I'm driving for a living, I'm out on the road driving, and I cannot believe that people are alive who drive like they do. So, I mean, maybe it is. But I'm guessing that with the advent of Trump and the independent type of stuff that came from it, it shows that there is a hunger from the general populace, enough of a hunger to put a threat to their system. And they're going to go to this. So Spreaker is the one who came up with no live audio. So I'm doing this to warn yous who are listening via this medium on Spreaker that you might want to keep your eye open, because I'll be going somewhere else. Meanwhile, you can look at BitChute. They've been very good. In fact, Spreaker's been good up to this point. So perhaps they're being buy out by iHeart. Maybe there's some corporate stuff coming in here. But BitChute.com is a video video service that I do post on. The YouTube now, this is like every couple of weeks, I'm getting videos deleted from 5 years ago for, quote, medical misinformation that could be dangerous to those listening. But it was fine for 5 years. Now all of a sudden it's not bad, not good. Also on the YouTube front, I've had like 1,950 subscribers for 10 years. It goes up to, down to, up to, down to. And plus the people who are subscribed to me don't even get noticed that I'm doing things. You have to hit the bell, and even that you don't know. You're some kind of if I was some kind of a big threat to their system, but I'm a pretty modest person out here, modest in terms of my footprint. And what I talk about generally is simply very logically and spiritually based. So maybe that's the problem. But So BitChute has been better because they don't have that kind of algorithms. Now, the problem with BitChute and Gab, for example, who is the only real free speech venue out there, is that you have to build your own following. Right? You can't get. They're not going to decide what you should hear, but you can choose to poke around, and when you subscribe to it, then you'll be updated. My subscribing on the subscribers on BitChute have been rising, which is it goes to show it's a slow term. I also have went to Rumble. That's brand new. I only have a handful of listeners there, but I was able to move a lot of my YouTube videos there, not all of them. So again, someday YouTube is going to close the curtain, and I'm going to have to figure out what to do at that point. I'll take a week off work just to work on all this stuff. So I'm sorry for all that blah, blah, blah in the beginning, but I wanted to get those things out. Back to the military censorship complex is Donald Trump seems to be avoiding these traps that they're putting out for. Now, granted, they're pretty dumb traps. They're pretty desperate traps, and they're obvious legal lawfare. It's obvious that they're going out to get him. They're not going out after a criminal. They're going out to get him, and they're coming up with ways to do it, and it's not really working. He's becoming more popular. So the next step now is I'm seeing Republican people starting to they're starting to resign, and so like they don't want to give the Republican votes or something. It's insane how what Trump is doing just by like being himself is exposing all the people who have been hiding under the masks of, I don't know, the Constitution, or, be doing good for America or Americans. It's amazing how that is. And it goes, most of my thrust, what I want to mention here is I'm not going to do a lot of political talk here because there's a lot of people doing it and a lot of people doing well. And if you go to gab.com, you can see a lot of people that I've been following. You could see some of my reposts, and you can find those people, and they're a pretty good source. You can get them elsewhere too. But it's a spiritual battle coming here. I mean, this is what it comes down to. They're getting to the point now, ideological battle between the do as thou wilt versus some type of ethics. Do as I will, do as thou wilt, and I only want you to do what I want you to do. So do as thou wilt for me, do as I wilt for you. And that's the spirit that's coming out, spirit of rebellion, recklessness, so forth. So, I mean, this is the battle that's coming on now, which is why I keep falling back to Jesus' words. Because I'm not an evangelist preacher here saying that, it's that we're coming through a time of testing as human beings. Forget even labels like Christianity. We're being tested for whether we're human or not. I did a video a long time ago talking about some of the facts that the elite don't think we're human, we're animals, and I had a couple of tests, a couple of things from TV and movies, which also got banned. So, but showed how they test. A lot of the shows are showing all these terrible things going on. A lot of the police shows, the Maury Poviches, all those showing the animalistic side of humanity, and they're basically saying, "Hey, these are animals. What are you worried about?" And now with this nationalism and all this stuff showing up, they're being upset by this because, no, we know what's best for you. You do what we say. The 15-minute cities, etc. Eating the food that we make with bugs in it and all that. It's supposed to be we're doing what's best for you, but also what's hidden under that, of course, is the satanic aspect. Is everything's going to make fun of humanity. It's going to show the badness of the humanity. It's going to highlight criminals. It's going to highlight the trans stuff, and it's going to highlight abortion. It's going to highlight these are going to be the things that are going to be pushed at what really is humanity, and it's really just the satanic aspect of going, see, you say God made man in his image. Look at this. What is this? And it's going to be forced more and more. And the people who do come out and do talk against it will be forced, will be getting this censorship of type. Censorship is going to be based on reach and money. So if you've got money, deep pockets, and you got a lot of people watching you, you're going to be more under the thumb. And you'll notice people, over the years this has happened, when people start to get pretty close, all of a sudden they'll do something dumb. And I think that you have to watch for that and not look at it kind of like, think of it this way. Maybe this is a disclaimer so that there's the aspect where people could plausible denial. Well, look, this person is telling us truth, but he's also doing goofy things. I mean, I think of Alex Jones in the process. He's brought out a lot of stuff over the years, which has been very, very accurate, sounding crazy in its inception, now becoming, you can see it every day. But the personality his allows him to get sued and all this stuff. And you got to let that kind of go and just look at the stuff being shared, whether it be looking at the opposite from a programming perspective. Say, like you watch CNN. You can learn from those things because they're programming what they want you to hear, and you can see the desperation and the buffoonery that they're falling into in trying to get their message out. So you can learn from it. I mean, I don't watch it much anymore because I got the point already. I know what's going on, and I don't have to have it, constantly because it irritates me. But my point is that people will be able to give you information. It's whether that information is whether what they intended it or not. That's another thing. This is where I like to have the guidance from God internal, because I have found over the years there's so much stuff out there that I can go through and talk about a bunch of stuff and have never covered it all and never get it through, and a lot of it is worthless. It's not bad. It's just worthless, right? And right now we're getting to a time where everything counts. We've got some really bad stuff coming up, and we can see it coming on, and we don't have time to fool around anymore. So I've lost a lot of my interest in it. I mean, people have listened to the show for a long time, or they do go back into the archives. I started out in like off like an Art Bell tangent. When Art Bell retired, I decided to do the radio 2003, January 5th, I think it was 2003. And I talked about everything from Planet X to aliens to reverse speech, remote viewing, all those types of topics. And I was interested in it. I used to love listening to Art Bell. I was a little irritated by him at times because he was a showman, which is why he probably had 500 stations within a year. But he wasn't necessarily interested in truth, though it can be found there, talking about these alternative topics, and yet information coming out and so on. But when I wanted to, I wanted to start narrowing things down, and I wanted to ask the questions I wanted to ask. I wanted to get the truth, and I do all this stuff. Well, I'm finding out there's no Planet X. There was a planet that came by. Perhaps it was a captured comet, like McKinney says with Venus and Velikovsky. But the physics shows that Nibiru can't rotate around like they say it could. It's too heavy, and it's too off-axis, and it'd be affected by the planets, etc. And when they talk about other planets being affected, it's not affected enough. When they talk about, Planet X is coming around the corner, we remember the Nancy leader, May, 13th or so, 2003. Where's Planet X? Didn't come. It's because they thought, the Earth, 3 days, 6 days for creation, 6,000 years. All that logic that came out there is not rooted in a hard kind of basis. It's all just talk. So I had everybody who ever uttered the word Planet X on my show, and every single one of them, I brought them down to their timing issue and say, how do you know when the flood happened? Well, it's going to happen here, it could happen here. How do you know when the creation happened for the six? They don't. And the margin of error for Planet X, be it just a rogue body coming through, or in the very unlikely event, but let's say a Nibiru type thing, it could be any time. There's a lot of focus on the sun, of having it explode. I mean, I remember watching Ed Dames talking about the shot across the bow, and lo and behold, A few months later, there was a super X-flare flash across the bow. Like, whoa, you know? And that was many, many years ago. We've had many shots across the bow. But it's a legitimate concern. It's just you can't put a time frame on it. And you have pandemics. We've had them. They've been fake and real or whatever throughout the time. We have all these things have happened. What makes it interesting to look at an end time scenario now is because all of this stuff is happening now. You're having, I have to kind of chuckle. You're having a blood moon and a solar eclipse within a month of each other. You know, not to mention a comet show. It's interesting, right? I'm thinking that if you're going to look for signs and wonders and all this stuff, it's not the signs and wonders. It's going to be the universality of it. I mean, back in the day when they thought Nero, I think it was Nero, was the Antichrist and stuff like this. Well, at that time, if you were in Rome and you were a Hebrew or a Christian, early Christians, it looked pretty bad, right? If you want to go back to the times of Babylon, same thing. But it was a local event. Genghis Khan, bigger event, still didn't affect a huge portion of the world. So what makes things differently today, I think, is the two things. One, the universality of civilization. I know if you're a goat farmer in Zaire, you're not going to be listening to this and not affected by what I'm saying or what everybody's saying. But you will be affected if there's a world war and there's nuclear events, right? So it doesn't have to be real time all connected. We're all affected. At one point, you could have a world war and the Aborigines in Australia just got up as another day, same day. Now world wars are going to be destroying large parts of the world. You have the economic pressure and crush. You talk about colonialism back in England and colonialism. Now it's all over the place. You have China looking for how to get into third world stuff. You got of course, the West doing it. You have this universality to it. You have the technology is the second thing, is beyond even close, even 20 years ago, what they have now. And you have the universal communications via the internet. So you can have both truth and falsity at the same time. And this is, of course, what the whole censorship thing is that they want to put out garbage and keep good information from getting out there. And if you can't control the internet, you can pollute it. And they're doing both. So they got to cover it on both ends. And who's they, right? Well, ultimately you have groups that are going together for world domination. I mean, everybody's dreamed about being king of the world, Alexander or whatever. And can't do it because there's too many powerful kings, but they can get together. And this is what the theory is, that one's going to rise from them, or one spiritual or alien or whatever is going to, once they get to do their work, come in and set it right. And these are all varying things, but the only thing I'm thinking about is the whole world involved now in this, and that's what makes it more problematic. So one thing good about the internet is you can get stuff out there, but it is a cord. It's cable, and you can cut that cable, and all the wireless hooked up to the system too. So there's no external way to do it. Like before, you had the corded phone lines. For them to shut down the whole system, you can't. Too much was able to be needed for it. Business, for example. But now with the internet, they have the ability to shut down certain aspects of it. So they don't have to shut the whole thing down. They can shut down public access while private access still has a way to route through it. So when you see these outages, I just was thinking just the last couple of weeks, there's these outages, phones and internet and so forth. It goes back to a show I did in November of 2021, talking about the 3 days of darkness. And I used that metaphor when I at that time I said they would shut off the internet, credit cards, banking cards, phone, cable, satellite, all this stuff. Let's say Friday at 6 o'clock, and by Monday it'll turn it back on again, and it'll be a different country. Well, they'll say they got rid of all the bad guys, Trump and Jordan and all these guys will be taken care of, and they'll finally, everything's fine. They were going to blow everything up. They had this great, look what they're doing with the January 6th thing. It's like they're working with stone, like they're working with like stones and pebbles, and they're making it into nuclear material, how they're exaggerating things. So it's interesting enough, when that stuff happened, I posted a few times, hey, it reminds me of a show I did several years ago. I put the links, and all of a sudden it gets deleted by YouTube. Well, come on. I mean, what I'm saying in there is not earth-shattering. It's not like nobody else could figure out what I was saying. Other people have been saying it in their own ways. So it's like it just shows you what's coming. And so, why am I doing this show, meaning Feet to the Fire Radio? Why am I doing it? It's 21 years. Why am I doing it? I used to do a 4-hour show, multiple guests, like Art Bell type thing. And is in the last few years, I've just been kind of focusing on the spiritual aspects of what I'm seeing. I'm seeing in latter days, and I'm not saying this like a prophet at doom. I'm analyzing these stuff and thinking about what's being said and what we should do if we're going to be a witness for God for morality. We're going to be like a human witness to the inhuman stuff, both seeing it with our eyes, living out what a human is like, and being like a observer and purveyor. Observer what's going on and purveying what should be going on, following the principles of Jesus. That's what I keep talking about. If you just look at the red letters and apply them to your life, this is what we should be doing now. And so what I'm also working on with Lionel Parkinson, I talked about a year ago. I noticed I did a show previewing this. We're talking about what Jesus taught as reflected in the various early churches, which has later on declared heretics, and a lot of their writings are gone. But these were people who were right there. Clement, being one of them, was actually trained by by Peter. He was the Bishop of Rome after he was declared Bishop of Rome. Some people would call him the next Pope after Peter, but there wasn't a Pope then. But and a lot of stuff they wrote, it's very good stuff. But because people don't want to hear it, because it talks about not blood sacrificing and killing and all this stuff, and they don't want to hear about that. And then in the same breath, you have people who are arming up, and you got to, because there's people breaking through your house to kill you. Nothing wrong with fighting back for that. Isn't that my problem? Is when you go out and bomb other countries way out there to stop them from doing something. I don't like that aspect. I want to protect ourselves, not go out there and beat up people so they don't come here. And then there's the whole political misalignment and lies behind it all. Go get them; they're bad, and it's really that there's an economic issue for it. So it's like ends up being false anyway. Every time we come around to Memorial Day and Veterans Day, I'm saddened because I think we've let down those people who have stepped up and said, I will fight for your freedoms. I will fight for morality. I will fight and give away my limb and life and limb. And a lot of those have just been used for political and money, monetary gains. I'm very saddened by that. People who had the honor to do this type of thing and they were misused. And it's like, it's terrible. And now, what is they saying? Like half of Ukraine's military age is either dead or wounded. They're running out of people. I mean, it's stepping up now. There's a attack in Moscow by terrorists. They tried to make it sound like it was ISIS, but then it turns out they found a couple of guys and they were Ukrainian. I'm telling you, we're so on the cusp of this stuff that it's so important that you get into what Jesus says. Hold on to God to get through it. You don't want to become frightened. You don't want to become just crazy. You don't want to become evil just to get through this. You want to do the right thing as we go through it. And people talk about, it's the end times. Well, there's a thing I call an end time cycle. If you go throughout history, there are these crucial moments when serious problems were. If you want to use, for example, Sodom and Gomorrah, they were destroyed, but it was a local event. But that local event went through a cycle, an end time cycle, and they hit their end time cycle, and it was an end time. You got the story of Nineveh with Jonah. That was their end time cycle coming out, but they changed. They repented, and they went on a good way, and they avoided the end time cycle, right? So you go throughout history, there were localized or regionalized end time cycles that came and actually ended or pulled back because of the change of what was going on. And, here I think we're in another one, except we're in kind of a worldwide one, where if it gets big enough and bad enough, it might not be able to pull out the nosedive. And, it's like people say, well, God won't let his people down and all that. Well, we're part of a bigger structure. If you're a child of God, you're serving God, and you want to. You offer your life in service to God, whatever that may be. Everybody has certain personalities, certain talents, certain traits. You're in a certain place at a certain time. You're the guy or gal who gets the call, and that's what we're supposed to be ready for. And if it comes into, well, this is an end time cycle, and this is the big one, that's what it is. It's just because we don't want it to be doesn't mean that God has abandoned us, nor will we can sit back and go, well, God won't let us happen to us, because all throughout history, a lot of people who were good servants of God had a rough time. So that's why we got to band together and keep our heads morality-wise. And when it comes down to like the poop hitting the fan, that's going to be the signal for a lot of people to get a lot of crazy. And we all got to stick together in this. It's like my favorite movie of all time is Ten Commandments. No, I know it's embellished. I got all that. Don't worry about it. But I like it. And when it was the Pharaoh wanted to kill the firstborn, they banded together and it passed over them. Now, I'm not going to argue whether the Passover was real or I'm not going to get in. I'm just looking at this as a story. And we're in another time now. Well, this would be a neo-Passover type of a thing, where some of us are going to go down in it, some of us are going to be a witness to it, and stay righteous, stay godly, so that we're going to be a witness against the dark side afterwards. I mean, a lot of stuff could happen, and it could turn around. So, but the common thread of that whole thing is being prepared by following God, and being his lead at the time will be crucial. So you might as well open your ears now, so that when the time really comes to get some kind of guidance, you'll have that spiritual, intuitive guidance. I mean, that's how I can sleep at night, is because when I get a lead from God, I'm starting to discern. I mean, I say I'm starting, I've been doing this for years, so I'm getting better now than, say, last year, and which is better than a year before, but it's also becoming more crucial, is I get stuff pops in my head. It's not words, it's not some, voice or nothing like that. It's an idea that pops in my head, and it's a different kind of a texture compared to a regular idea or a memory. It's a little subtle, but there's something there, and it's like, where did that come from? I wasn't thinking about anything. There was nothing around me that was prompting that, per se. There it is. I'm going to listen to this. And the times that I haven't, I've regretted it. And the times that I have cherished it. And so this is the type of thing I think, of course, food and arms and all this other stuff, right? But it doesn't matter if you have all this stuff, and the timing is the most crucial thing, and that's from God. The timing is the difference between, I always like to have this deal where you're going around a merry-go-round, like you're standing on the end of it, right? And there's other merry-go-rounds coming next to you. And if you want to get off the merry-go-round, you can just jump. But in falling off the merry-go-round, you can be killed or hurt. But if the merry-go-rounds are going around a certain way, you can step from one to the other without any trouble, depending upon the cycles of how it turns. There's always going to be guidance on what to do at certain times. And you say, well, what about that person there? Was he, was killed by those bad guys? Right? Well, God will never let service go unrewarded. And some of the Bible verses that talk about God pays back, and they use the example of a bushel, where when you buy a bushel of wheat, you get a guy who's a little cheap. They kind of fluff up the wheat. They don't go all the way to the top, and all this stuff. Well, God pays back what it pressed down in that basket so that it's compressed to get more in there, and it overflows. Those are true things. Well, over here he's letting these people get hurt here. It's a bigger picture, and you have to trust in it. Because if you go, oh, it isn't, then, it's all just run around with your head screaming because we're all lost, So to me, it's a question of either there is a God or there isn't. And either God is either all-knowing and there's a plan and eternal, or he's just like a big brother or a big bad guy who just has a bigger fist than you. And if that's the case, I don't even know why we still exist, because that fight should have been over with eons ago. And a lot of people might say maybe it was, and we're like the fifth different iteration or whatever. But so it's kind of like either God is God or it doesn't matter. And, I'm going with God, being all-knowing, all-loving, all-caring, all everything, so that everything works out. So when we get on the other side, we look back and go, oh, wow, that's pretty clever. And that's kind of how I'm going at it. So I will do these when I can. I'm really irritated by it not being live because I'm pretending I'm talking to you guys. And I know you will be listening, but in my mind, it was easier for me to go live and talk to somebody, even if there's like nobody in the chat room. It's still out there. I'm talking with somebody, so it's a little more difficult for me to do this. It's less enjoyable, but as I was talking just there, I forgot about it not being live, and so I wasn't really paying attention, and it was still going. So, but go to feedtothefireradio.com and get into newsletter there. I haven't been using it much. There's a bunch of people have signed up on it. I will discipline myself to use it more. It's just I have a lot going on. No excuses. It's just reality, right? It's 57 hours this week, 59 hours last week. Got stuff I got to do on Saturday. Sunday's my day, and I'm going to make an effort because I got a lot to say. And from my feedback from you guys, you want to hear it. And please, it's Feet to the Fire Radio, one word, at Proton Mail. Send me a question specifically I would like about Jesus, Bible, theology, and all that. Because I've put together what I think the gospel is, what it was meant to be, what Jesus was teaching, and why. I got this all for my own self. Like I did this 20-some years ago. Before I was doing radio, I started this whole trek to find out what the real truth was, and I got a working model that works pretty good for me, and I'm willing to share it. But for me to go out and just do it, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at a linear, when it comes to spiritual stuff, this kind of linear thinking. Okay, we'll start here. We'll have chapter 1, chapter 2. I can't do it. What just comes out, right? So it just comes out. So it's up to people to take whatever comes out, keep what they want, or if you want to ask me something that I can specifically respond to, I would really appreciate it. So we'll, do that. It's Feet to the Fire Radio, all one word, Feet to the Fire Radio, one word. I know it's long, but it's easy to remember. At protonmail.com, and that'll get to me. If you got the old emails that I've had, they all work. They all come to me, but that's the one I'm trying to focus on now. So, okay, we'll let it go here. This supposedly will go to YouTube, and they'll make it into a video and upload it, and it'll go over to BitChute. But keep your eyes open for, if you're interested what I'm going to say, what I say and all that, keep your eyes open. FeedTheFireRadio.com. Get on the newsletter there. And then I will be able to let you know what's going on. So we'll do that. I love this song, Ancient One, Mild Friend, the one who walked before, the one who will walk again. let today be that day. I will see you.
Oh, my old friend, the one who walked before, the one who walked again, the ancient one of old, with wisdom for the new. Revive our inner sight, retell your timeless truths. Oh, it's your one.
Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the OnSync radio network of stations.